Hey, this is the comprehensive plan meeting for April 15th, 2025. Meeting's called to order. Let's please join us for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right? Roll call. Believe we're missing, Mark
Correct, and
and Mr. Coyle.
Coy.
Still,
Again, I tried to find an email for him. I looked up on the
I had
web.
2 emails and they both come back.
Do you have the Yahoo one?
Nope.
Okay, well, I looked that up on the web.
You may text them and ask them for an email?
Yeah,
That'd be great.
yes, please.
Oh, hey,
or find out if he's still interested in being on the committee.
Right.
Okay, today's agenda, we have a couple items on this to review. One is everything old business and the action items from the February meeting. And then new business includes update on project manager. Where does that stand? Roles and responsibilities, strategies and so forth. And then item 2 is updating the plan for preparing for updating the plan for this comprehensive plan, the outline. Continue the discussion on collection of information for it. And item 3 is community engagement.
Hard to beat that.
Desired outcome. What are the key outreach points we're gonna get for this plan? Item 4 is comments for this, comments, discussion, updates, anything else going on. And item 5 is wrap up of reviewing action items, establish the next meeting date. I would recommend we take comments, discussion, updates, move those to right after the agenda approval. I mean, the minute approval or into announcements up here.
Oh, really? I moved it down
Yeah.
because
If we can do it
sometimes
quick,
they, yeah, okay.
we'll do it.
Sometimes they take longer and
It's
then.
bullet points. If it needs more discussion, we'll put it on a bike locker and bring it up for later discussion. Everyone okay with that agenda?
sounds good.
Okay. Can we do this in an hour and a half, or do you guys need 2 hours today?
Try an hour and a half.
Okay.
2.5.
What's 2.5 you do?
3 now.
Keep going.
Okay. How many updates do we have to go over? We cover the whole village and the county for that.
Do we want to do that? I'm sorry, do you want to do the updates and discussion before the approval of the?
Let's
minutes?
go,
Or over the minutes?
let's get the minutes out of the way and then take another topics.
Okay.
So I'm asking Allison to go over the minutes a little bit since it's been a while since we reviewed them and get us back on track.
Okay. So, last agenda, the, kind of the general statement on about what the agenda was for was to regroup and determine path forward, considering some of the changes in the group and, the action items that had continued to remain on the agenda. So some of the action items that were in the previous agenda were develop comp plan overview for Village Voice, print version, and share with committee. I believe that you provided that, right, Attila?
Correct.
Yes, and I reviewed it and provided a few small comments on it. And I don't know if that final version went to the Village Voice or not.
Don't know. I don't remember seeing your responses. So,
Did you see mine?
yes.
Cool. All right.
I'll have to make a note for myself to send you that again. What, do you want to talk about that yet, or you want to put that on for the?
Let's put down the communication,
Okay,
community engagement, outreach stuff.
yeah, develop interview questions for Village Voice podcast, and again, I think that was done. Chilla and Greg, they worked on that together. Address project manager request with mayor, and I believe Bill provided us an update on that today. Is that correct? Okay, so we can talk about that. Distribute template to working groups again, and I did do that, but I'm not sure if everybody. Okay. Because I did send that out. It was way back. but then I sent you another version because you needed that to work with. All right, so the old business was review action items, which were, some bullet points for Bill to communicate to council about what our status was, and we may have some new plans for how we're gonna do that Bill can provide, as we get into this. I share a list of items and edited it based on input, shared with members via email. We wanted to add a folder to the Google Drive, and Santos said he would do that. I'm not sure if we're getting.
Does everybody have access to that
I
now?
can't- What is it called?
So I send a link and you reply to the link and
Yes.
that gives you access.
And usually it says, okay,
It didn't work.
I can't get
So,
through. It tells me
I'll
I
send it-
can't get access.
But you emailed me a bunch of folders
Oh.
Okay,
because we couldn't get the link.
I couldn't get it either.
Yeah.
well, let me try to send it to you now
Okay.
while we're meeting.
All right,
Okay,
all right, let's try that. And
Owen, did you get the link?
I did, but send me again.
Okay, fair
yeah,
enough.
I could not get in because I tried and it said denied. I sent you. Okay, let me keep going because this is maybe a little bit too much detail. Add a folder, okay. Find committee member to put workforce committee information together in a template. We're working on that with regard to the project manager position, so we deal with that in a different way. And we did say we could assign it to that. Find a committee member to work on economic development section again. The project manager was gonna be maybe one that would bring in the information from the old economic development plan and from other members that could find information and the Chamber of Commerce. Let's see, what else do we have in here? Yeah. Collect economic data on the largest tax receipts and annual growth rate. Owen was collecting that information, I believe, and we'll have it available for everybody or for the economic development information in tourism. And it said that Santos had GRT numbers back to 2019 and some historical water tax information. Communicate with Greg Rao and Shay Didlis to get help with communications with other committees, and that was until then he began that process. Announcements. So we said Marianne was no longer chair. She's no longer on the committee. Chilla would continue in his role as co-chair. I don't know if you're looking for another co-chair, but,
Depends on what the project manager is scope with doing.
okay. Bill said that all committees put together their charter, that the defensible space ordinance came through. We have medical director, salary partially funded. Owen says that he's working on goals and mission statement and, for the Lodgers Tax Committee. Attila says the Trails and Rec Community secured a grant for design and engineering on the extension of the Frank County Trail up to 100K. I think it was 99 or something like that. And Santos got access to GIS from University of New Mexico, with plats and details of utilities and zoning layers, et cetera. So he's got a lot of that built into the GIS now. And Bill says the Workforce Housing Committee has a lot of developments, updates, and regular council meetings. Jake Crane provides those. Vendors are trying to sell small, ready to install homes. Screening candidates through the committee and survey with, we have a screening survey out for employees in the area. Committee vacancies, so we wanted to see if we, just ask for more members, roles for more members, what would they do? Would we make that request through to the mayor? I don't know if that request is made or if we want to pursue that any further to get more members on the committee. Again, it would be kind of more, what do we want them to do? And then we have a question about the project manager. Mark said that the application for the next grant for the wildlife mitigation areas and surrounding area, not within the village, is moving. Let's see. And, this is another one of our ways of communicating information. He says that, we could use the AFPO meeting at the end of June for very short or brief presentations on, the committee. So under agreement, we have requested 2 additional participants to serve. I have WERV on this committee with communication or planning background and solicit working group representatives to participate in comp plan meetings. So that was one of the things we had on there, was trying to get somehow communications with the other working groups on a more regular basis. And I don't know that we determined if we were gonna go go to their meetings, or if they were gonna come to ours, but I think we want them to come to ours because there are so many of theirs. So, we probably need to check on that item.
I'll have the community engagement support.
Okay. Desired outcome. On project manager, so we discussed scope of work, we discussed how we could incorporate or utilize a project manager. And what were some of the items for their scope of work, such as collecting public comment or entering information into the plan, templates, collecting information from other committees. So it also mentions a new planning director would be coming in April 1 or approximately. And that Santos would be having more time to dedicate to other priorities. And so our agreement was a project manager is necessary to complete the comp plan by the end of 2025. And we all agreed that the scope of work was appropriate for the project manager. Community engagement, desired outcome was discuss and agree on important outreach strategies. So we mentioned things like town hall, the village voice, the podcasts, the other meetings that occur within the village. So we're still working out that list and how we might approach each of those possible ways to communicate and get input. Farmers market, we said newspaper, etc. So the agreements are that the town hall should occur in late May before Memorial Day weekend. A quick Facebook poll could be developed to confirm dates and community interest. And then we had a wrap up, review our action items, pursuing project manager, etc. And key messages for the council update, establish next meeting date, and agenda topics. So the agenda topics for the next meeting date were to be the GIS data, which we're probably not going to be talking too much about today, vacancies, project manager, and comp plan committee member roles and responsibilities. So that's the minutes.
Everyone okay with that? Everyone approve minutes by consensus for the last meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
approved by consensus. Okay, announcements?
Yes, any announcements or updates from anyone in the room? Right.
On the communications front and somewhat the outreach front, I did receive the initial draft of Attila's Village Voice copy. I believe I've received updates from Allison.
Oh,
Yeah, you did send some.
I did send some, but I thought
You made some comments, I think.
they were, yeah, minor, but
Yeah.
a little bit too.
We're ready to, the next Village Voice is now going digital, be an email that goes out monthly.
Okay.
And then the podcasts, we can record anytime. One of the holdups we had on getting things going was scheduling the town hall.
Yeah.
And I'd like to propose that we get going on the communication before we even know the date of the town hall. If you've got committee members you're reaching out to or anything else, we can do multiple podcasts. And we can include information in multiple Village Voices. So don't look at it as a one-time shot. So if there's things you want to get going on communicating now, before, as we come together on the town hall and build that out so it's successful, let me know. So we're ready to jump in whenever.
Okay, I would think, I'll respond quickly that, determining whose role it is to reach out to each one of the committee chairs and ask them to participate. I know you've had Workforce and a few others, but, is that a recommendation from our committee to the village manager saying, hey, well, we would request to have each committee, participate in a podcast? Or do you want us to reach out to all the committees? And I
I can reach out in terms of getting them in a podcast and participating, I can do that.
Okay,
But in terms of comprehensive plan of you
right,
two in particular coming in studio and
Sure.
talking about what's going on, we're ready to jump on.
okay, we can do that.
Okay,
Okay, so that, I think it should be a rolling series of committees. And the questions I put in their goals, their actions, what they're working on, the big picture stuff, the smaller picture stuff. You know, how do they keep going after there's administration change, if there is, because. You know, all this energy, how do we keep the energy going is kind of the point of that. But we can definitely come to
and how does this immediate project that we're working on that everybody can see and touch fit in the comprehensive plan?
right,
You know, so
Right.
that constant communication of that plan being a living, breathing document that we're all
sure, okay.
working on. We're ready to jump on that, so.
All right,
You
awesome.
look like
Thank
you
you,
need
Greg.
to say something.
Well, I was gonna say that I'm happy to go to the committees, but I think
Okay.
between Santos, Greg and myself, we can make arrangement to hit the committees.
Okay,
So how are we going to, what are we gonna ask? I mean, I understood
So-
what you were
so-
saying, what you wanted to ask them to do, but I was almost hearing you were saying that we would go with them?
no, I think what I'm hearing Ralph saying is he would like us to do a podcast on the comprehensive plan, be part of that.
Mhm.
At the same time, we can say that, hey, these other committees, all the work they're doing fits into the comp plan, so their goal, whether it's Firewise or better housing issues or transportation, all fit into the comp plan, so we're trying to see how this all fits together.
Okay, so that would mean that they would need to have either some questions prepared for them that we might put together. Is that
That's
correct?
the podcast questions
Yeah.
kind of got to that, so they'd have to be briefed in advance that, here's what we're asking you, be ready for it.
Right.
Which then also feeds into the,
It's not
this is all
just-
communication, we'll bring back, also feeds into the town hall, it's the same stuff we want to hear in the town hall, so.
But it's not just them providing updates on what their committee is doing, it's more, it's also how it fits into this, and that's gonna be a place where they're gonna have a disconnect, because they still don't have that understanding of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and in some areas, that's my responsibility as the host, is to try to bring that in. Our podcasts are fairly conversational, question and answer. We do cover what we're gonna talk about prior to the podcast, a quick outline, but it's not all right, here we are with the microphone
Yeah.
and the camera. It's not,
Okay.
we don't take anybody,
That's why you did me.
Oh, yeah, sure.
well, you're controversial, so.
Okay,
So,
I
yeah.
just wanna make sure that
Yeah.
you're not just kind of taking, I don't know how it fits into the comp plan. you know?
No, with that, we wouldn't have those, we set it up, so to speak.
okay, any other announcements, updates on that, and we'll probably discuss that in a little more detail when we get into communication and outreach. Anything else? Okay, yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, one of the things that I just kind of took on is, I met with Greg last week and we took the template and sat down and filled out most of what is on this, I'm gonna call it the table of contents, that so that I have the template and then I have some information that once we put this together, all that information would go in behind the template. And I'm planning on setting up a meeting with Jake and doing the same thing, and with Kurt and doing the same thing. Or if anybody else wants to do this besides me, I just jumped on it.
Well, Kurt, yeah, and I are meeting on,
Okay, so
so,
y'all fill out.
and I met with Santos as well, so we're
Okay.
working.
Yeah,
I
okay,
think Allison has the notes I got from Kurt that I think were originally asked. Length of water lines by size, things like that, so. It's just, I think, fill in the gap of what's remaining on
Yeah,
public
Some of-
works side anyway.
some of the big things when I've been going through that template and really building it, I found that I'm not the one that's gonna know what the priorities are, how you want something to get done, and what your recommendations are. As an expert of that area, like Kurt, he's gonna be the one that, you take all this information, yeah, you can say what are the existing conditions, but then the recommendations and the goals are gonna be we're gonna have to have a conversation with these people who know and say why they want that. I know we're jumping past the
That's
executive,
okay.
but we are having
Good conversation.
to get there. And, that's what I found when I was going through it, was that they're the ones that are gonna really know, like Greg, with regard to tourism. What do you think is the best and why? You know, is our next step, priority, recommendation, all this information, where do you think we should put our efforts? So that's what.
Right, the Rec and Trails Group is our process, and I laid out that process for us back last September. We went through it and first went through the existing conditions and just, you know, flip chart everything on the board, existing conditions for both recreation opportunities, trails opportunities, and just then we grouped that, and then we went through a second exercise of issues, concerns, opportunities, and we grouped those. From there, we took that and came back and looked at that grouping and created goal statements for each one of those areas, both recreation and trails. So that's our process as far as taking where we've been, what we're dealing with, and where we want to go. And the next step is gonna be, what is the action items? Where's our priority? Is it the priority for this trailer? Is it priority for the skate park? Or is it pump track? What is the priority for these different pieces? So as we go through it,
So,
yeah, man.
And I just wanna say like, when it comes to priority listing, keep in mind, I mean, I'm sure you guys know, I'm not trying to tell you your business, but this is a 5-year document. Priorities are gonna change.
It's a 10-year document, and I
So-
think our priorities are what we put into the plan. Then I'm recommending that, let me finish, that your staff, your departments gather annually to a facilitated thing and say, what is our 3-year action plan based on what's in this document? It is not for us to tell you where your money's coming from and how you can do stuff. We can say, this is what we think is the big picture. It's up to your staff to say, we can accomplish this in 27 or 28 or 29 or 30.
No, I get that, but first of all, it is a 10-year plan, but it's supposed to be renewed every 5 years. So every 5 years, it has a chance to change. And that was my point, is that I just think we need to make sure that our priorities are not so specific that the minute they're printed, they're no longer viable. You know, they need to be more generic and a little higher level, a little more, maybe not 30,000 feet, but maybe 20,000 feet.
like a
As
goal.
far, when you're talking about priority, you can list everything that needs to be done.
Yeah.
That needs to be listed. But as far as prioritizing them, we just gotta realize that that's gonna change, and in 3 years and 7 months, we're gonna potentially have a new administration. This document's gonna
Yeah.
live through that administration.
So for example, if the goal is to increase water savings.
Yeah.
In the village is a simple goal by 50% or whatever measurable you put on there. You may have 3 or 4 objectives. One is better monitoring of water tanks. A quicker resolution of leaks and whatever else, and then all the actions below that, that's your problem. I don't even wanna go below
Okay,
those goals. So how you figure out reducing leakage, that's
And we
the
can-
brain trust in the village. I can come up with
Yeah, we can
that.
tweak based on your input.
Yeah.
With regard to
Does
that.
that help too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't wanna get into the actions, cause that's,
okay, I just, when you
Well,
said
yeah.
prioritizing, I went more detailed than y'all
Well,
are
we do
talking.
have that in, I mean, he's.
well, so let's say there's stuff, my idea, and this is a great conversation. My idea is that in the goal saying, maybe there's 8 or 10 goals that some program has, right? And through some community process, the community can say, yeah, I think, these are my top 3 goals, windshield survey. So all of a sudden, tourism sees that, oh, here's what the community cares about. They care about goal A and goal B and goal F. And maybe you see the same with the issues. There's another issues. What are the top 3 issues? Well, I think the roads are too smooth, could be an issue, and everyone drives too fast. So whatever the issues come out of it, whatever the issues come out, that's gonna help also drive the goals. And then from there, I think those top goals, what we wanna focus on some of the objectives on, okay, this is what people care about. This aligns with our thinking. Here's goals that can address some of these things. And then it's up to, from there, it's up to the departments and the committees to continue to whittle into those goals and those actions and objectives to get into what we can do.
But I think Brett, you're providing us some good direction there. And I'm not just saying that, I mean, that's what we need to know, because that's gonna make me approach that recommendations, section a little with that in
So,
mind.
so to me, there's a piece of this, and again, I know I try to stay out of these meetings because I tend to dominate them when I get involved, and I don't want to do that. So, you know, there is like high-level things we need to decide, I think, that are gonna affect everything a lot. Like, is growth a focus of the village? Because, and what type of growth? Do we want more houses? Or do we want more full-time residents? Because all of that impacts, growth is the biggest
That's at a
variable
high level.
that we need to figure out, where do we wanna go? I'll tell you, I haven't said this publicly before, I haven't even said it to my boss yet, so I may get in trouble. But I've said it to Santos.
I'm not his boss,
Oh my goodness.
just to be clear.
I have real concern about all these condos going up. I really do. It sounds great, it's new revenue, but infrastructure, water rights, are we prepared for it?
Well, along those lines, this village does not have an adopted vision
Yeah.
Right.
by council or government, so until we know what the vision for this community is, that dictates the rest of the comprehensive plan. So whether it's growth oriented or conservation and natural resource oriented or tourism oriented or outdoor, whatever it is, everything falls into place on that. So I think part of this town hall process is vision. We need to know what the vision is. People want to see this thing. So that also drives into it. Santos.
Sorry to skip a beat, but I think it'd be helpful to introduce a new planning director for the Village of Angel Fire, who comes by way of Army Corps of Engineer for 30 years, 20 years,
Us with the Corps, 20 years. and
20 years.
30 years active duty.
responsible for all bridges across New Mexico from Elephant Butte north into southern Colorado.
Up to, just south of Colorado Springs.
Yes,
All the
so
dams.
Provide your-
It was
The
already.
whole plumbing system.
Monday was his first official day. So this is day 2. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you for coming to our meeting. And
I noticed he had the
I know it's Reggie, but
vintage.
what's the last name?
Bourgeois.
Oh, yeah,
Bourgeois.
that's right, I can spell that.
You can?
So Reg is getting up to speed on our land use codes
Okay,
and processing applications. So for example, yesterday, Alice and I were able to meet and Reg took all the calls and people coming in the front, this is permits. So I think that it's off to a really good start, but you'll probably see Reg at some of our
excellent.
meetings as well. And he'll be the new face for permitting.
So to thank you for get us back on track. Yes, we've got to figure out what the vision is for this as it fits together, because that's definitely part that's been missing. And that should be a facilitated kind of exercise among village staff and community residents to figure out what that vision is. It's not just someone writing a statement saying yes or no, it's a process.
Because it incorporates
Well,
a mission and it incorporates.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is appropriate time or not, but sorry I was late. I was in another meeting that ran long. I apologize, but was hoping to get in on the portion where you hear from the public, which is usually at the beginning. I don't know.
Yeah, we're still in announcements, updates, so yeah.
Okay,
That's way at the end, but if you want to.
because, and maybe this is premature, but what I do need to ask this committee is your plans to hire a consultant to develop the comprehensive plan? Because if it is, I need to know so I can get funds in the budget. Because we're in budgeting right now, and the final budget has to be submitted by June 1st. So you know, I can do some ballparks on costs and all that. I'm not asking you to come up with a number. But I do wanna know, are y'all planning on next year hiring a consultant?
Yes.
Or y'all doing this on your own or what? I'm not,
So
I
next year,
just need to know
beginning
for the budget.
July 1,
July 1 to start.
we need a project manager that can devote more time than we have available to make this project. If we still agree with the completion date by end of 2025, present it to council and all for adoption. We need a project manager that can do the day-to-day work that, occurs. Because with, we basically have 1, 2, 3 active committee members on this now. So that project manager, I believe there's conversation going on between, the mayor and La Sierra Planning as potentially doing that work. If it's too much for La Sierra Planning, to take it on, then we could hire another consultant, maybe do the final writing or editing or whatever else. But I believe the project manager could have a larger say in how much additional resources are needed to complete it. Beyond what is sort of, I think, been agreed to between the mayor and La Sierra Planning, although I'm not certain. There, I will also add that there, I know, and I've mentioned this in the past, there is, I believe there's always money available through NMFA, New Mexico Finance Authority, for some planning assistance to do comprehensive plans. So I don't know if your grant writer could look into that opportunity and save your budget and use some of the state's money to pursue that fund.
But even if we're gonna go after a grant, I still need to know, because the grant needs to be included in the budget.
Okay,
So,
I say yes.
Sounds like a yes.
Absolutely, yes,
Sounds like a yes.
yes.
okay. All right, that's all I need.
Excellent.
Let's do, any other announcement updates?
Yeah, I know.
Hey.
See?
Okay, update on project manager. Timely topic.
Okay, so this is a topic.
So idea that the desire to come is that we put together a scope of work last time that said, there's the task that we need help with. Pretty extensive list. Counselor Humbert took that to the mayor, with an interest that we need these tasks to support our work. It's the day-to-day stuff. It's the demographic work, all those pieces of the puzzle that can help build the foundation for the plan. Reaching out to the working committees to make sure they're submitting their documents and staying on track. The idea was that perhaps Santos might be interested in that opportunity or change his role based on the planning director being on board. We all agreed on the scope and responsibility last time and said, this is what we think this person needs to do. And,
I just thought you just basically provided an update.
I paid not getting this now, Bill, can they take it further than what we left off there?
No,
please?
the mayor was totally in favor of it. In fact, he went and met with Santos right after he and I talked, and I think they worked out an agreement on how we're.
So I need to prepare the scope
Which
to
one?
amend my contract.
Okay,
And so taking the elements that you've provided on the scope of, what the scope of services should look like,
okay,
and try to couple them with other elements I think that might be coming up or needed for completion of this scope of work. So
okay.
I'll coordinate that with the village on whatever other elements are needed to make sure that gets off and into good transition
And do you have timelines for when that might happen?
in the next 2 weeks.
And were the scope elements we prepared seemed reasonable to you?
They did,
Okay.
I'm just thinking of anything else that might come in from outside of that, but I think it's a really good start to get that done.
Okay,
I also feel that, and this kind of goes into our conversation set for tomorrow about Liberty Square. I just from my observations on all the other committees that have been going on, there have been a very good conversations moving forward, whether it's the Fire Adaptive Committee talking about defensible space, even the night sky conversation, people have a genuine interest of what is it that we could do for the betterment of the village, right? So everybody's going in this direction, but they're in their own lanes, and there's really been no crossover at all. So like, for example, tomorrow, your committee with parks has had this ongoing conversation about trails and interactions and walkability, how do we get people to Allen Fields? Lodgers Tax is having this conversation about, we need an event space. We've got this property right back here. Well, it's right along the trail. Well, how do we integrate that? And then comprehensive plan, you've got this conversation that's been lacking since 1987. What's the center of this town? There is no central place. So how do we get those three conversations, at least those three, to start making sure we're still going in the same direction and then we don't have any real conflicts moving forward? I don't think there's gonna be conflicts, but I think at a minimum, we need to at least integrate these voices, right? I see that with all the other committees that we have, of even the infrastructure committee that's met twice, but didn't have a quorum once. There's, I think, a genuine interest of what is it that we can do to assist the village and make it a better place. And that's a component of the comprehensive plan. So I see myself being more engaged rather than just logging in and taking notes, but actually having the time to participate more to make sure that all these gets integrated.
That voice.
Yes,
that cross communication.
you know, workforce housing, those guys have been meeting like 7 times a month. Like twice a week, because of their time crunch of getting housing this year before the weather goes bad. So that, the housing component is still something within every concept, comprehensive plan. But how do we get those voices integrated to each other and everybody being heard? So.
Well, and then, you know, what they're doing, we're not getting updates from all these guys and we're not providing input to them.
It seems
on
like
what
it
we
seems
need
like it's a
from
vacuum,
them.
right?
Yeah.
Goes back to the town hall concept, which might help
So-
some of that. Yes, sir.
So I guess you're looking for updates from each of the individual committees? Because don't you think those updates should be occurring at council meetings? I mean,
I'm looking for what we asked each committee, when everyone came to our meeting at, the brewery. And we had the draft template, we had a timeline. And that said that during the course of November, December, January, February, we'd like to have, your existing conditions bullet points. We like to have a list of the biggest issues, opportunities and threats you're dealing with as a committee. And we like to have a draft list of the big goals you think you want to work on. And I know every committee is working on those exact same 3 things. They're all working on some goal, whether it's defensible space or more heads in beds, whatever it is, they're all working on those things. And the problem is that we can't generate that information from the meetings. The charters that people started submitting, the charters were only to make their committees work better and more functional. Because unless they knew what they were doing, but the prime example was the night sky committee, they never knew what their mission was. Was it an ordinance or was it to get people to think about night sky and education? So they went around in circles and circles and circles because they never had a charter. So I coming from the world of project management and charters, my 2 committees have charters of some degree, and we follow that, so we know when we're going off scope. So the reason the Rec and Trails did is because everything we do is based off of that charter. We go back and look at it. Okay, did we deliver these things last year? Are we on track? Are we still on our mission? So we review that as we go through it, and I think that's a little annual report that we're submitting to the village. Will show, so what we wanted from, and then when we presented in November to council, and we're asking the council liaisons to please meet with the committees and remind them of the timeline and of the tasks that were asked for by the comprehensive plan committee. And I believe only Workforce submitted something to us in time. And Rec and Trails, of course, has got it done. So we're still lacking that because that starts the foundation of the whole plan. So that's the biggest need, is that a bullet point of existing conditions. So if some resident reads it and says, oh, I didn't know we had, 2-inch lines in the system. And there's an existing condition, and issues that we can't get, firefighting apparatus up and down the streets or whatever it might be. Whatever those issues are, it's just a list. And that to be prioritized, but then the big goals that the goals start. So that's what we were asking for, and we still need. And now with the project manager on board, the project manager can have that role of being, persevering and pushing the committees to get that to the comprehensive plan committee. Because we're only here in advisory, and we can only do so much. We're not getting I don't think we're getting the, reciprocal work back from the committees for our committee. Maybe they don't understand comprehensive plan, or we explained it, went over that.
Did, but not, I
And
know.
maybe we just gotta hammer that over and over and over again, but we're also limited with 3 people on our committee to be able to do that.
I mean, initially.
Well, I would just, my advice would be, and if this is insulting, I don't intend it to be, but we need to understand we're dealing with volunteers here. And so this isn't like you give somebody direction, an employee, and they're gonna follow it. They're volunteers that are trying to do what they think is good. So whenever you want something out of them, now it's different if it's my staff. My staff, I mean, if they're giving you issues, you should come to me.
I think it's.
But if it's a committee's, they're gonna need to be sold on it, not directed what to do.
Yeah, well, I think they want to hear what information they need to provide as a committee. What is it that you as a committee are supposed to accomplish? Now, the charter is part of that, but part of the charter should be to support the comprehensive plan as far as information, right?
A few months ago, or 6 weeks or so, Ileana sent an email out to, I know, our committee about our mission statement. Was that sent to other committees in the village for their mission statements or their charters?
I think they were
It was
because,
specific-
I'm sorry, I just want to mention that workforce housing, I think, got that same email.
Everybody
They were
got it.
working on
Yeah.
it.
It's
as well.
So if the committees responded and Ileana got those initial mission statements from those committee members, it's maybe a place to start with those people that responded and ask them if they could look at what are the 3 main issues your committee's dealing with right now.
So, yes.
And maybe we can get some response through that same channel that gave us those charters or those mission statements.
Exactly, because I would think that each committee has been, approved by council and the mayor that you're gonna help us move the village forward. So,
Yeah, but that's true, but you gotta understand the nature of committees and volunteers is their definition of what you just said might be different than your definition, and they're saying, we were brought together to get workforce housing, not to help the comprehensive plan committee. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that might be their mentality, and they're laser focused on what they're doing. I'm just saying that.
yeah, I hear you, manager.
I really think it goes back to what I just mentioned earlier about Liberty Square. Because after the workforce housing met, oh God. It was either earlier this month or last part of March, they had just migrated over to the board. I was like, hey, I like this, this is cool. There's these conversations that everyone is having, it's just they've never been brought together. And the Workforce Housing Committee, I'll just say, they are focusing what type of homes are we looking at, who can deliver, what's the cost per square foot, what amenities can be provided. But then when it stopped, they all migrated over there, like, what's this? How do I get engaged? So to me, it feels like there needs to be just more engagement, interaction that I can do with these committees. And I really think that Liberty Square is a good conversation of, this is why we need a comp plan, right? How do we put all these elements together that everybody's been asking for, and we put it in a manageable way?
Yeah.
So I get the idea that folks have got this task, but they're not familiar with it or understand it. Completely get that. But we have a dialogue that's very productive. I mean, that gets everyone's attention of, oh, well, we could put the police station here. I really like this part and connect. There's a bigger conversation that this goes from that. So I think I can work with Ileana to see who responded on the mission statements
Right.
and start doing the follow-ups. Because I really think the more we get these, actually focus groups is what I view them as, engaged into this conversation. I think we can move pretty quickly of how everybody stays integrated moving forward, so.
And
yeah,
I'm sorry, but my recommendation is that the integration needs to happen through the council. Because the council needs to know this more than this committee does. I'm sorry, it's true. The council is the decision makers.
Well, of
And-
course, but council to be approving the plan, right?
Yes.
You're involved in the plan the whole way,
Well,
so.
if you do it right, they should be approving, maybe not via a vote, but they should be approving it as you go. Because what you don't want to do is get to the end. And I hate to use it, but the Night Sky Committee is a perfect example.
You're right.
They got to the end and they delivered something that the council didn't want.
Right, so here's another example of that, so the workforce housing thing, I happened to be here for a meeting and Rocky said, here's their plan, and I looked at it and said, okay, so if this is if you're trying to get families to come in here and live in these places, I see no green space here for a playground or a dog park in this. I don't see a
Well,
sidewalk.
I know, but that was always in the plan. So I'm not sure why you said that because
Well, because the plan I saw, I'm just telling you,
it
this
must
is,
have been extremely preliminary and.
maybe, but I'm just, my point was
There's
that.
green space in there.
How can the other committees share with other committees to get broader voices into what they're working on? And that's the same point you're making, is we don't wanna come to the ninth hour and all of a sudden everyone screams because no one talked to anybody else.
That's why I'm saying the committee sharing needs to happen through the council. And if we have other committees that are attending the council meetings, as committees share what's going on with the council, or liaisons share what's going on with the committees they're in charge of, that's really a great point of interaction. And because the thing is, what you don't want to do is get all the committees to agree and take something to the council that they're not in favor of. You
So-
need, the council
So there's two steps.
needs to be
Yeah.
involved.
So there's two steps though, in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan needs to get a recommendation from P and Z before it goes to council. So it's a two-step process, just like a zoning application does. That said, I do agree there needs to be integration in these conversations so that we all make sure we're all still going in the right direction. And to me, that's what I see right now is we've got Firewise, workforce housing, dark sky, night sky, whatever. Everybody working, going this way, how do we make sure they're all come together? And if we have a quarterly report where we can bring to P and Z and to council, this is where we are for updates, that makes a lot of sense. But I agree with the conversation that was made earlier. I don't want to wait till the end to say, here's what we got and we missed the mark. Because that's a lot of energy and time that everybody is invested in.
Well, I'll tell you, if I had my druthers, the answer is to require the committees to do a once a month report to the council. Now, I brought that up early on. I don't want to say outvoted. It wasn't agreed to. But that's what needs to happen, a required report, because we have it at every council meeting. Committees report, how many have we had? In the year and 2 months I've been here, I bet you we hadn't had 10.
I think we can coordinate that. I think if you have this project manager tasked with this document, make sure it's going forward in the right direction. I think that should be a responsibility.
I just think the committee should be coming to council on a regular basis and updating council on what they're doing and getting asking the council for feedback. Hey, look, we think this is the way we want to go with Liberty Square. What do you guys think? And if you don't want to do it in a council meeting, we have work sessions all the time. And we can do work sessions. But I really think the central point of all this has to be, of all of our committees, has to be the council, because the council's the final decision maker.
Agreed.
Santos and I have had that conversation, and that's one of the reasons that I've said we need to put together a rough draft and get it to council in May so that they can see what we're doing and say, okay, this is where we want you to go. And if not, don't let us get down to the end and say, this isn't what we want. And I think we can do that. But I agree with what you said. We can't depend on the committees bringing us the stuff. That's why I took it on myself, and you're doing the same thing, going out to those liaisons or chair people and sitting down with them with this template and saying, okay, let's go over this and get the information. Then we can put it all together in a rough draft, show it to the council and say, is this what we want? And I think I can do that.
I just spent, what, 2 hours with Santos yesterday incorporating stuff. I spent an hour or two with you incorporating stuff. You're not gonna get that kind of information into the plan at council meetings or at work sessions. There's just not enough time, but we can obviously bring that information, like you say, to council once it's been somewhat developed. And it would be great if everybody were to present to council. I think that'd be a great way
Ray and I
to
spent, what, an hour and a half, and we're
Yeah,
almost through with what.
I agree that council is the final word on everything. And for us, for lodger's tax, it's a lot easier than these other committees. Because lodger's tax has an assigned staff person. Where fire adaptive, some of these parks and recs, they may not have a staff person that's intricately involved in their committee, reports to their committee, and then takes that information back to council. That's sort of part of my job, is managing the relationship between our ad agency, our lodgers tax board, and the village council. That's my triangle of responsibility that I focus on. And it's fortunate for lodgers tax, but some of these other committees don't have that staff person. So how do we? It's not necessarily the committee chair, can't dump more on that volunteer. How do we get that information from these committees?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the only committee that doesn't have a staff person assigned is Night Skies.
That's the only one?
That was the only one.
Okay, I was wrong.
Now, I mean, for this guy, it's Santos. He's not an employee, he's a contractor with us, but effectively, he's doing the same job. But every other committee has, Trails has Shay, that's assigned to it. Workforce Housing has Rocky,
Well,
that's
that's,
assigned to it.
those staff members, we may not be doing committee reports at the council meetings, but we're doing staff reports that may cover what our committee's doing.
Well, maybe we need to better define who's
Can you
responsible.
make the staff
That's a
member
really
get the
good-
information
Yeah.
from the committee?
Mike,
I will tell you, again, I'm always trying to be, because I'm a little outspoken, sometimes I offend people and I don't mean to, but that is the job of the liaison. That's why there is a liaison. The liaison, and I was trying to get around saying this, but the liaison really should be reporting to the council in conjunction with the chairman.
Is that the council person?
yeah, so this committee prepares, at the end of the
I
meeting.
told you I was gonna make you mad.
Yeah,
He's laughing, he's not mad.
This committee, at the end of the meeting, will prepare 3 or 4 bullet points, say, okay, what are the key points that our council liaison makes the council after this meeting? The rec and trails are the same thing for Councilor Weeks. What are the 3 or 4 points you need to make it necessary with our committee work?
That would be great.
So we're doing that. Now, whether it gets transferred from paper to Councilor Weeks to council,
So you are doing
we
that?
are doing that. That's our committee,
what I
that's,
used.
that's what we do at the end of the meeting, is it's okay, what are the 3 or 4 bullet points right now that we wanna
You
make
may
sure
not have
that.
noticed, but I'm sorry to cut you off, but yeah, Bill does that. It's just, we haven't had much for Bill to share since our last meeting.
Yeah. So we are doing that, and we've also prepared an annual report, there was, that's, I think we finally tweaked now to get to you, by Matt, delivered by Matt. So we're trying to communicate and recognize that and our mission or our deliverable is regular updates to council, that's in our deliverable in our charter statement. That says it has to happen, because we are at the mercy of council to exist. So we have to do what they want us to do and make sure we're not going off track, that's where it's
I'm not
expected
sure
of us.
monthly is really gonna be very effective.
Monthly or regularly,
Yeah.
I mean, just whenever you do it, so yes, we are recognize communication has to improve from committee
Okay.
up to council and back and forth. So project manager, you got your hands full.
I think it's great, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's needed. Comprehensive plans aren't this staff report. It's not an annual report. I mean, it's looking at existing conditions and also making projections and also making recommendations for the future. So it's not a quick and easy document to do, but it also requires a lot of engagement, a lot of conversation. So, I think Taos County is adopting their comprehensive plan update today,
Dallas County?
Taos County.
Yeah, I
That's a
shared
year,
draft of their first survey over a year ago we started. I said, they're doing a survey, we should be doing a survey.
that's taken a year and a half.
Year and a half, yeah.
They're at a year and a half to this point. They also got NMFA funding for like 50,000. I think 50,000 is the going rate for NMFA grants for comp plans. And then Taos County supplemented that contract with other funds as well.
And Red River's doing their contract.
Red River is doing theirs as well. I think the person that was doing Taos County is also the same person doing Red River. So there's a timing element on that. But nonetheless, I mean, if you look at what was done for this document, the document before 97, the document before 87, 88, it wasn't done in a weekend. And there was some reference that I think this one was actually done in 6 weeks because the committee met like 3 times a week for 6 weeks to get things done. You could do that. I just don't think that's where we're at in 2025. To get a document like this where it needs to be in 2025. So, but yes, I think your original question was, do I think I'll be busy? Absolutely.
It's a fun busy though. This is kind of fun kind of stuff.
It is. I mean, because again, there's a lot of conversations that are happening in this village, whether it's workforce housing or trails. Everybody still wants to do something for the betterment of the village. How do we enhance this experience and make it better? How do we get more people to come to Angel Fire? How do we incorporate, we never had an airline service like we have now. And that was daily flights 6 days a week, right? When did we ever have that? How do we put that in? How do we acknowledge that? How do we reinforce that in moving forward? There's a lot of things that have happened now that nobody even thought about in 2004, 2005, 2008. How do we capture it and
We continue to capture it over time as well.
yes. There's a lot of great work going on in Public Works. I think they were shared at their council meeting in March. From March 24 to March 25, we saved 300 acre feet of water. With a lot of the improvements that I think you had rattled off, just better metering, how to identify leaks faster, upgrading a tank system. That's a lot of improvement that in just 1 year's time that you can see, this is the good direction to go. How do we enhance it? How do we make sure that it piggybacks into another great step?
Agreed.
Well, I think that segues pretty well into the next item. We might
Yeah, the
fill
update.
some of that in.
So there's item 2, desired outcomes was a formulated plan for completing the templates. Outline a process to collect information and then drafting a schedule for completing parts of the plan. So there's 3 parts here. One is, how do we, there's some template areas that are missing. There's still economic information, some other pieces that are vacant.
Right.
How do we, what are some key points to collect that? And then, are we still on schedule pushing for November, December presentation
So,
for a final
Right.
draft to council?
so you feel like you've got your section pretty far along, is that correct? All right, now mine's in progress. I've got 2. And you're working on some others. So we've got different people working in different ways to complete these sections, right?
Mhm.
And they're that's just gonna be the skeleton almost, right?
It is.
Because there's a lot of information that gets filled in, but at least we get that skeleton filled in, that template. And then we can work from there to fill in information that may be needed to explain and to.
How many are missing?
So okay, that's a good question.
So I got a template from the police chief last week. I think he had originally emailed it to Mary Ann. And then he's like, I just haven't heard anything. Well, I explained about our membership and our committees. So he re-forwarded it to me on Friday. So I have the police department. I think we've been working on Public Works, collectively. So I guess the question is, what gaps do we need to fill in
Right.
templates?
So you wanna list out
I'm
the first
working
one? That's the
on,
first
I'm
one.
working on section one
Section one, which
and
is, which section one?
section one is land use and plan development. And then section
And
six,
Bill, you're working on that, with
With-
how?
I'm just going, I went to Greg
Santos,
and I went to Greg and we sat down, filled it in. I've talked with Jake. We just haven't found a time when we both can get together.
Okay, I mean,
Uh,
what information do you need?
Well, now some of it you're probably getting because there's roads and infrastructure, but that's in about 4 different places. And
Right,
you've got that, so it could be, I don't know that,
it's
I don't know
listed
how it
in
fits
there
in there.
as, that's the group that might have some input to the land use and planning and development. So in other words,
Okay.
these are the sources of information.
okay, so
You might
then you and I need
utilize.
to get together and plug that portion in.
Okay,
And then planning and zoning,
That was
that
Mary
won't be a
Ann's.
problem, I'll get that.
that was Mary Ann's thing.
Planning and
Well,
zoning?
No, the roads and everything.
Oh, yeah, I know, and
She put together some stuff.
she put together some stuff, yes.
Okay, so land use plan development.
And
you're
then,
working-
economic
Number two-
development,
No, just give me number 2. What's number 2?
economic development.
No, no,
No,
no.
I went.
Water,
number
I know,
one.
I know, before you jump,
I didn't do two.
I wanna do on that
You
order.
did two.
Water, wastewater, and solid waste. Allison is working on that,
Mhm.
with,
They were the only ones that required.
Santos and Kurt. I'm even probably gonna be communicating with the, Slash program. So, that would be Ms. Roma. So et cetera. And then what's number 3?
Roads and transportation.
Roads and transportation. And we have Mary Ann completed quite a bit of it.
I'm gonna work with Bill at the airport, on the airport.
Okay, Bill, working, Bill at the airport.
So do you guys, on that note, do you guys think crosswalks and sidewalk safety belongs in roads and infrastructure or belongs in trails and recreation? Both.
Well, I
Cause
know,
there's a crap ton of places we have really poor crosswalks and no sidewalks and pedestrian safety.
So I'm gonna make it easy and say they belong to both.
Okay,
Because trails has to determine where you want them,
Mhm.
if they're related to a trail. And streets is the one that's gonna have to create them.
okay. Good.
And if you want some that are not related to a trail, then it's gonna be streets.
Just me, I think if you're talking of a trails perspective on the connectivity, walkability, you guys are probably at the front line of where the crosswalks and sidewalks.
Right, but then it's up to
Integrate.
those guys to say how they prioritize it into the system, that they know it's needed. They may
And
not see the need as we see the need.
Right,
if you wanna cross 434, we're gonna have to bring in DOT.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah. But they could, just like right now, notice those cross areas need to be repainted because you can't even see them. But that could be could be one of the recommendations.
Yeah, so I think DOT comes every other year and paints your roads. If you look at it, that's what they try to do. But it doesn't even start until May.
Yeah.
So it usually happens in the summer and they'll do sidewalk, they'll do everything at the same time. You could get with, District 4, what's the lady's name? I can't think of her name. But there's that coordinates all that and she'll give you a time frame.
Yeah, so that could be a simple objective is to meet with DOT to increase frequency of zebra striping the streets or the side, whatever. So that's a simple objective. And then actions are, okay, who does that? Does that come from Public Works Department or somebody else? But that's the kind of thing. Okay, I didn't want to go too long, but I was just thinking about that roads one.
So I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but if you need interaction with DOT, come to me.
Sure.
I have the relationship.
Okay,
So the 4th one is what?
Recreation, and that's just about everybody.
Yeah, so, but Attila has a lot of that in hand.
Mhm.
Has developed.
Well, and,
A great deal.
lodgers tax is dealing with a lot of that, so,
You said that just now, I realized.
What was
I'll
the next
They were
one?
gonna do it today,
Greg or.
if you would have called them last week.
And then we got what? And then we got what?
Oh, actually, we got community activities and tourism.
Do we
So
have
here-
anybody on that?
Well,
We got,
you've got tourism, which is gonna be,
and you're working with Greg on that?
yeah, I work with Greg and Owen on this,
We
on just the tourism.
voted on
section.
and mission statement, long-term goals.
Okay, after that one,
It's all of it.
After that one is economic development, and I'm working on that.
We have the previous plan to incorporate too.
And, well,
yes. With Santos and,
actually, Mark, I asked Mark at the last council meeting if he could, because there's something in there about the resort on that one. Pull up something, and he was a little hesitant. He didn't like to do that.
oh, kind of like numbers of,
Well, I said, what, you can just put in there what the plans are that the resort has on some of this stuff.
hmm.
I mean, because theirs is all of theirs is recreation.
And Santos, I know you had a bunch of information. on
I'll talk with Mark again about
You had
that.
economic development, Greg had economic development.
Bill, I'd make a recommendation that you get with the mayor and go directly to John Kitts for resort input.
Okay,
So we have an agreement. I contact the lawyers, the mayor contacts Mr. Kitts.
okay. Well, it's just that Mark is on this committee, is the reason.
Oh, because he's on
He's
this.
on the committee, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well,
But
but,
if you're not getting information.
No, what you're doing may make sense since he's on the committee. I didn't.
He's representing the resort.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and,
He's probably the right one.
but I think probably he would prefer us going to John Kitts because he doesn't want to say some things that he hasn't run past it.
So the mayor is the liaison with Mr. Kitts.
I'll touch base with, with Jake.
All right, what's next? Anything else on that one?
Now, it's lodgers, tax and tourism, which is all one thing, and I'll work with these two characters. And I'm gonna be working with Jake, so we'll plug that portion in on that too. And then 7 is public health and safety.
So
And,
we got something from the police department, on Friday,
oh, okay,
and then I'm gonna send a template to the new fire chief. Cause I don't know where that conversation went prior to him, so we could have those brought in, and I'll work on that, getting from the integration from both chiefs.
How do we get the information from the hospital?
So from public health and safety, I'm gonna make a recommendation that you have 2 more points of contact. One is, Maya, Langren,
mhm,
Maya, with the resort to talk about their contribution to public health and safety, at the resort. And then I would recommend you talk to Bruce Jasmine,
yep,
for the hospital district's contribution. And if y'all haven't heard, I think it's next Thursday. We actually have a meeting here to talk about moving the health clinic, meeting with the hospital district to talk about moving the health clinic to Liberty Square.
next,
It's an introductory.
that's the
Is
That's
that
twenty.
just when the skateboarders hurt themselves, they weren't.
Yeah.
We've got a work session next Thursday.
Yeah, I have to look at my.
And economic
I
development
can't
also.
remember. I'm
Yeah,
getting
we've
steak.
got a work session scheduled for next Thursday, the 24th.
And we
Do
gotta
you remember, Ellie, on
incorporate
the-
workforce housing into.
The
economic
work session or the
development
health clinic?
The health clinic.
The health clinic is the 17th,
Oh,
But now, one of the
but you were
things
right, at 2 o'clock.
that
and
we
then the
need to
24th
make
followed
sure
as a
that
work
we
session.
do is like on fire adaptive, well, the council passed the ordinance on fire adaptive here, a couple of weeks back, a month or so.
Mhm.
That needs to be folded into this.
Yes.
and I would recommend you work through Lindsay Reed on
The
that.
ambassador.
And there's a lot more to that, but I've never seen, from Fire Adaptive, that's gotta be brought into the conversation, there's like evacuation routes off the mountain.
Public outreach, there's tons of stuff.
Yeah, all of a sudden, when all this Firewise stuff happened all the time, which is really cool, because I think she's got a big part in that, but there's so many pieces of that that's more than just slash management, which is, it seems with Fire Adaptive, is their focus, laser focus on slash management?
No,
Not, they're broader than that, okay.
yes, so they actually have been talking about evacuation routes.
Oh, good.
How to get down the mountain. I met with chief yesterday, so that's ongoing. They're also looking at the inspections that folks are asking for to get their insurance certificate. So it's not just the slash, even though that's been,
one part of
that's
it.
been a big part. That's now gone, so yeah, they've still got some other activities that they're focusing in on.
So I have a great story.
We got time, Brad, go.
You don't know what you said.
19 minutes.
It,
You have 19 minutes.
the White House that's on the corner of Lakeview Drive, and then it turns
Yes.
off to go to Lakeview Terrace. That White House, y'all might have seen trucks out there if you drive by there that were thinning. And the reason is, and I heard this from the real estate agent just last night. The real estate agent sold that house. Well, the new buyers couldn't get insurance. So the new buyer went to Captain Romo and Lindsay Reed. They went out, did a site survey, told them, gave them a plan, clear these trees out, and you'll be in compliance with our DSO. They spent a week cleaning those trees out, and last night they got insurance on that house.
So they got a certification?
They got the certification, turned it into the insurance company, and the same insurance company that was denying them gave them insurance.
So to build on that, you actually would need like certified or Annual Fire Ordinance safe sign to do tours. On the old farm bills, when you did a lot of water quality and other projects, the farmers and ranchers would put a sign out there to say that their own kindred, yeah, I got this money from the feds or the state to do this, and I can still graze and do whatever on here, but it showed that you can do cool stuff and be a model for your community. So
It's a good
how do
idea.
you make that a model for others to go look at? Oh, they didn't clear cut, there's still plenty of trees here,
Right,
my project.
Yeah, it's not clear cut at all. You should go look at it.
But that's what scares people, if they come here and wipe out my 200-yard zone. So how do we
But I will
certify?
tell you, they probably took 20 trees off that property. But if you hadn't seen it beforehand, you looked at it right
You
now,
know.
it's got more trees on it
Right.
than my lot does.
So have a certified DSO ordinance safe house, and
Well, I think we'll have that. It's just that it's very early.
that's, we wanna move to that, recognize those homeowners are participating in this
It's a great
project.
idea.
So that's an action item that could be in the plan on how to recognize this kind of stuff. Okay, moving on,
Okay, I think I covered all the sections.
No, natural and.
That's
scenic
me.
beauty.
I haven't started.
So-
But I'm gonna get on it.
what's our plan for completing the templates? Do we have a timeline for getting the templates done? You wanna have a draft from the council by mayor, is that
I
realistic?
think if we have the templates, we can use that as a rough draft for the council to see what we're doing and to see if this is,
so by the beginning of May, so that we can have it ready by the end of May.
So 2 weeks for all templates?
I'm having surgery in a week.
Well, then you better get busy.
yeah.
Welcome back.
It's gonna be laying down after.
I mean, yeah,
I might be able to.
So beginning of May or end of May for your present, you wanna have a draft?
I think if we could get it by the end of May, that would be great. If we could have the
So,
draft to
Wait.
if
present.
we had like mid-May, all templates in, so I get 2 weeks to get draft
Mhm.
stuff. And I also get 2 weeks to fill in gaps wherever gaps
You're
are.
gonna need a
Then
lot of that.
I can present and help present that at the end of May to council.
Yeah, and just get the feel if this is.
So templates
where we
when?
need to go.
Templates completed between April 15th and May 15th,
I'm gonna put draft templates.
Mhm.
and then, May 30th.
May one
Council.
and May 15.
Council presentation update. May 30th, just put it, just kind of date in there. Okay. So for collecting the information, we'll,
Make sure, just a suggestion, go on that. If you get access to the G Drive, just upload it to the G Drive.
yeah,
Cause I just sent an email to you
Okay.
both. See if you can get links to those folders. There's a
So-
folder for documents and I can put a subfolder of templates. And if we just had it going into there, so I'm not,
you guys can also send it to Santos and we can upload to the Google Drive if you can't.
Oh.
So just send
I wanna
us.
see what's in there, 'cause I need some of that information.
check the link.
Okay.
So, we'll want to upload for you. Okay.
Yes, there are 4 links, because there's 4 folders. I want to make sure you get access to all of that as a comprehensive plan, member. So if you. I just want to make sure that everybody gets a link and click yes, so I can just reply to it. So you see the
Okay,
4.
I've always had access to comp plan. Let's see,
all right,
anyway, sorry.
drafting a schedule to completing parts of the plan. Santos, if you're coming on as the contractor, my project manager, I have to finalize that timeline, put it in a Gantt chart or something to work with.
Okay.
I put down here that draft templates are due between May 1st and May 15th.
Yep.
And that the council presentation update is approximately May 30th.
And maybe by May 30th, if not before, we'll have a Gantt chart with you and the remaining steps to complete the draft.
Yeah, as far as, I've got the list in here, but you just go off of that main
Okay.
outline and we'll know which ones you're gonna have to help complete.
Revised timeline for
And
completion.
it's most of them except
And if we don't have all of
roads.
the sections, that'd be okay too.
Well, I'd like to get all of
We-
them. I really would.
Yeah, we
Sort of just start, yeah.
We should be able to do that.
Are you gonna have us like a summary on it or
When can he start
an
working on
opening
this?
statement or something?
It was on Monday is when I
Based on-
started.
But, wait a minute, no, beta.
So he's has no contract to do this, so I
I
don't.
mean, you have a
So
contract.
right now, I still have La Sierra Planning Group still has a contract with the village to do planning work. Reg is taking over the day-to-day operations, but I still have a scope of services that's just planning consulting, right? So I'm still gonna work under that umbrella, but that contract obviously needs to be revised. So that Reg's job description, really just take all of that out and take it over, that's where he takes over. And then fill it back in with the scope of services that you guys have.
Push it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't want
But
folks
you
to
need to
feel
start-
there's,
Then,
I don't want folks to feel there's a
December.
gap in services,
Yeah.
because there's still a contract
Yeah.
that's still recognized.
could you start meeting with some of the other committees as they?
Yes,
start having-
yes. So actually, what I've been doing is most of those committees have been I've had the login, so I've been logging in as they meet.
Oh, okay.
Or if I miss it, I just watch it the next day, cause it'll be auto posted online. So. I will say Lodgers Tax is pretty lively.
Are they?
Boom, 30 minutes, you're in, you're out. Bada
Yeah.
bing, bada boom.
We have a rule.
Yes.
That's a rule.
Meetings.
30 minutes or less? Okay, all right, so action item, Santos will revise the timeline for completion. That's item 3 in that. So community engagement. As you know, that's kind of where my message has always been on community engagement. While I recognize we have these great committees, Santos pointed out they all kind of still working in silos. The interchange we hoped would happen through this process is not happening well enough. We heard that council's not getting updated enough, so we're having all the stuff. But we also know they're all thinking on the same line, so everyone's thinking about all these different topics, so. I think I want to come back in this town hall conversation, see where we're at with that idea, if there's still support for it. Cause I thought that would be one way to really get a good interchange. I'm very, keep thinking about Owen's comment that town hall, unless we provide food and beverage, we're not getting anybody to show up to it. So I wanna think about
It's true.
what makes people show up to it, what makes it worthwhile for them. To engage in this sort of a open house style workshop. So as a reminder, what I was proposing was, open house tabling style format where each committee would be tabling at a town hall. We'd have some opening comments from the mayor perhaps, and maybe from the comprehensive plan, one person from our committee about what it's about. But then you ideally would go out and talk to Firewise and see their poster of goals and their poster of issues, and they could sticky dot vote on, yeah, I care about these 3 goals, or I care about those 3 goals. You do that for all the different committees, and you can leave, you've made your piece, and then we would repeat the introductory comments for the second half if people show up, so it's not really, you have to sit through a whole lot of listening, it's come in, visit, talk to different committees. Also, it's a good place to have a conversation about community vision. One of the cool exercises, imagine an Angel Fire headline 10 years from now, what would it say? And you write your idea, this is the headline. And you take all those ideas, wordsmith it, you might have enough information for a vision that talks about growth or recreation or natural resources or whatever is of interest as a process. So I was thinking those were, I was proposing for this town hall idea, I proposed it back several months ago. The village manager endorsed it and pretty much gave it to tourism department to start playing with the idea to where we go. Big questions we had, does it happen? When does it happen? Does it happen after everyone shows up here? We keep thinking May before Memorial Day weekend. Can't really tie it into members weekend because there's already too much happening on the June members meeting with all the stuff here. So that's where it was at. Tell me
When
You
is
what,
wanna, you wanna know how to get them here?
feed them.
Yeah, sponsor a cocktail party on members weekend on the Friday before.
How do we
Sponsor
do that?
Cocktail party,
Who
where we
sponsors
gather
that?
up. And do it in a place where you could have the tables and stuff set up.
Will the tent be set up?
Tent should be set up. Yes,
So I'm
So there's a new restaurant that is coming in for permit at Frontier Park. Don't know how quickly it's gonna get turned out. But there's parking that would be available. I think we might know the owner of the restaurant to see if they'd be willing to host an event like that. But that, to me, that's a central spot that's easy to find. And it should have the room to accommodate.
I don't know about.
I don't know if they'll have the space in there.
Wine and charcuterie.
Yep.
on that one, okay, yeah,
DJ and Annie gonna do that.
Oh, really? I don't know anything about it.
So-
But
That's just a thought. I mean, but I do like your idea of timing, when folks are starting to come in for that weekend. And they wanna, share some opinions and
and
thoughts.
there is stuff going on that weekend, but it's mainly, they go to the cocktail party on the Friday, they see their buddies that they haven't seen in 6 months. They gather up again on Saturday morning for the meeting in the lodge. They do the barbecue lunch afterwards, and it's pretty much over. So there might be an opportunity for us to do something in there
last year at the
and have
members,
numbers.
the members dinner, we had a table set up outside of the check-in for that dinner for the trails. What are your trail priorities? We had a lot of people come over and talk to us about what the trail priorities, so that actually worked as a way to engage.
So when is this?
It's in June, right?
June members weekend,
Yeah, is it,
and we'd have all the drafts from the committees, we'd have all the
it'll be
templates.
after we talk to the council. That would be a good time.
So I mean, it's like, we have to find a way to get community, push information out to them, which is one half of the puzzle. The other half is how do we get information back from part-time residents and others that are full-time who aren't engaging in daily activities like us.
So let's look at, I like Greg's idea, if there was a way that we could do it during that weekend.
And Saturday
before-
night.
Yeah, or Friday night before, let's see how quickly we can
The
get
only,
something together.
yeah.
I will say the other thing is, some of the other elements that people are doing on their comp plan is. There's like a Facebook page and an online survey. I'm that we can. Hey, I saw you at weekend, I saw you at membership weekend, but we left early. That's fine. Here's a QR code that takes you here. You can fill out a survey and bring it back. So.
I'm game for that. Earlier, this committee was not in favor of doing a survey because they thought too many questions would be.
It has
People wouldn't
to be-
understand them. Yeah, they can be tailored.
Yeah.
To enough that, what are your top, you could have
If you
them check off.
provide them with ideas, and then if they have others to add, they
Let's
can, but you
do this.
start with,
Let's look at what sample surveys
Yeah,
look like
yeah.
for comprehensive
I
plan.
have Red Rivers and Taos.
Let's see what,
I
if
think
you,
they're on the comprehensive plan Gmail site or somewhere.
okay,
let's
Okay,
get I think if we could do both at membership weekend, let's try to target that.
I think there's something Friday night and there's something Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. That's when you're Saturday. Late afternoon.
Okay. I never went to those meetings. I
I
just
did.
paid my dues.
the AFCO meeting.
okay, so town hall proposals now, members weekend.
You should see how many people were at that last AFCO meeting.
Yeah, they're huge.
It was packed. And it's a great place to mention, hey, we have this other thing, we love your input on it.
Plus a survey with a QR code, they get a business card with the QR code, take with them, get it out.
I think I think we should talk to Greg, cause I know the marketing, or maybe Owen, I mean, the marketing, didn't they help coordinate the workforce housing survey?
I don't remember. It wasn't through us.
Okay.
So it might have been through
Do you
just
know
the
what members
tourism.
weekend looks like? Does anybody know? Does anybody have a schedule for members weekend?
June 25th somewhere.
Is it that late? But I meant of the activities, like you said, there's something Friday night.
Greg, when's membership weekend? Is it the end of June, mid-June?
I don't know. I don't work there anymore.
So
It's probably, yeah, it's gotta be mid-June.
Greg, is there a potential role for you to coordinate, see if the resort if we can do something with them, would they help advertise for us or vice versa, or would they do that? If we did a town hall kind of event in Frontier Park or
Yeah.
at the tent?
Yeah, let me talk to membership there. I'll talk to their membership director and Kaylin over at their membership office. Get the layout for what they have planned for that weekend. See
Okay,
if there's an opportunity for us to get involved and sponsor a town hall, the Friday gathering. And just to get opinions and
I mean,
feedback
it
from
could
the
be Saturday
locals.
too, but just where it fits well in the schedule.
Yeah, see if there's any opportunity. Yeah, it may not be Friday.
and if there isn't an opportunity, then what's our plan B?
Yeah.
Do we have a plan B? Do we go back to May or we still push it?
I like having it after the council discussion because then we'll have a little bit more surety in what we want to put out there as far as goals and things like that, that we want people to comment on. That's what I would say. There's balloons for Angel Fire, doing something out there. Oh, there's only event there.
That's Father's Day weekend, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Father's Day weekend.
So it's actually
and-
the 6th and 7th, 8th
What is?
June.
Members weekend?
That's,
That's early, isn't it?
that is.
Yeah, well, that's when the member barbecue at Monte Verde, so maybe not.
No, I think that is.
Yeah, that's
Right.
probably part of it. June 6th, 7th, and 8th, you said?
This doesn't seem right. 'Cause it doesn't mention the voting or anything.
Okay,
That barbecue is just
That barbecue's just,
It's
that's
very
not
simple.
part of
Just a
Member's
festival.
weekend.
Very simple.
all right, so Greg's gonna talk to membership, there's opportunity to do something with member weekend or we can table all our committees and have a vision
June
exercise.
21st. June 21st.
It may be Saturday after their general meeting, they
Yeah.
file
I mean-
down to our,
What's great about that is you can tell everybody,
Balloons is
and after this meeting, we have that.
Balloons is
Yeah.
Father's Day
And
weekend.
then they-
yeah, so let me talk to membership, see what we can find out. I'll try to do that tomorrow.
Okay,
See if there's any opportunities for us to get involved there.
all right. So we still agree that this town hall kind of is a useful idea to get some feedback.
In
I think so.
combination potentially with the Facebook and online survey.
Yes. We definitely need a social media presence to get the word out, what's the committee's doing, so I don't know how. I don't know
It's
how,
gonna take some work though,
it
but
would take some work, I mean, the village has a Facebook page, right?
Yes, Shay administers Facebook page for the village and all the official side.
Yeah,
We do the visit side, but Shay does the official side. As she reports to all the other boards, the Information Highway, the Veteran, the Post Office, all the other ones, so,
there's no more better than the post office, you know that, right?
what,
There's no more better than the post office.
what, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is anyway.
I refer to them as the idiot board, so.
visit,
Wow, information highway.
Yeah, yeah. False information, fake news.
It can be, you gotta be really careful.
so if we had some
I
sort
think
of,
you're gonna get some traction though with your podcasts.
yeah,
And as you start getting that off the ground, ideally in May, so that when June hits for the meeting, folks, it's not all, wait, what is this? I think you've got some good lead time
Village Voice.
with Village Voice and the podcast to get this out there, and then we can coordinate with Shay on,
Is it too late to
pushing.
get in with the new newspaper?
the Shannon Circle News.
I do that column, I have to submit that by the 17th. So
It's too
the
late.
one for, I'm not rewriting.
Yeah, okay.
This one's rewritten, this one's done, I can get it in the next one.
But that may be a little late,
Is there,
but that's
Facebook,
okay, maybe.
is there a template that Shay needs that we can have for the comp plan kind of updates, or
I'm not sure, I'll ask her.
I can talk to her as well, so, action, I'll talk to her, I'll see her, well, she's on vacation, I think, on the 20th.
What are you gonna ask her about?
I'm gonna talk to her about Facebook page for, if there's a template for comp plan stuff, you know, how we put quick surveys on their goals or, you know, getting feedback on that, how we do that. Okay. Anything else on community engagement that we need? So the article that, has been drafted and edited, that makes sense to you, that we seem to cover some of the key points that. Okay. And we'll shoot for that for next month.
Yeah, I'll get that in the first, that'll go out in our first electronic Village Voice,
Okay,
which will go out, no, it'll actually go out next 2 weeks.
okay,
It goes out before the end of the month. We have to coordinate how water bills are going out. And then coordinate with the people that don't have computers. That are not liking this change.
Yeah. I know.
how many of those are there in town?
I'm not sure, but there's enough, there's some.
Put it on the marquee,
Yeah.
They call Greg from their landline.
low down, and, look at the marquee.
Say
Okay,
this
Mhm.
for people, just
Mhm.
make their comments,
Well.
what else is there for the good of the cause? We covered some major stuff here.
These are very.
Very fast, very
Yeah.
quick. Workforce Housing, I think, has
Hey,
selected a
folks, nice-
vendor.
nice
They've selected a
updates.
vendor. We're looking at 2 different models of 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes to be put behind Zeb's on the 4.5 acres. They'll be coming to P and Z for variance on their propane tanks, because they'll be buried but within a setback, which is fine, you just need a variance to that. So you've got a green belt of 10 feet around the site. You got open space at the entrance, you got open space at the middle, and there's a cul-de-sac at the bottom where I think you've got some additional open space. Parking is gonna be dedicated within that drive and the cul-de-sac, so it's not like you drive to your unit. There's designated spots for snow removal as well. So that's moving very, very fast. They finished the environmental survey, I think last week, so that they can again proceed to start moving dirt. They're still working with Housing New Mexico on income levels, on who could be eligible in that household. So speaking of that, the village council adopted an amendment to their code that if you have property within the overlay, which is basically from Sage to the blinking light, and you can at least dedicate 10% of your project to workforce housing, which is defined by New Mexico Finance Authority is 300% of median income. Housing New Mexico, their programs are at 150% median income. So if you go through the NMFA bucket of funding, that can get you to a household income of $138,000. I think the challenge that the village has had is if you get 3 roommates and there's a cap on eligibility for income household, how do you work that math? But nonetheless, the council adopted an ordinance that if you dedicate at least 10% of your project to workforce housing, you could be considered for a density bonus of up to 30 units to the acre. Right now, the highest density we allow is 20 units to the acre. So you get an extra 10 units, but you've got to make a presentation to P&Z and go to council. It's not an automatic. I mean, in theory, you could have 3 proposals and maybe the village only finds value in 2, or they find value in all 3. But it's a may, it's not a shall kind of ordinance. The village also took action. Our code has been very silent that if you look in the zoning district and it is not listed, then it means it's not allowed. And we have no allowance for commercial crop production for agriculture. We do not have the water shares to sustain that type of activity. Legal counsel advised, I know it's not listed, so it's not allowed, but could you make it explicit? So the council adopted another code amendment to define what commercial crop production is, and then add a provision shall not have access to public water. So that all the efforts that have been done in this last year by the Public Works Department to save water, manage water better, there's another layer of, there's not a sneaky way for somebody to start mining water for crop production. We don't allow it for alfalfa, we don't allow it for cannabis, nobody has that right.
How many units are in that phase 1 of the?
Up to 30 units. So right now they're looking at the vendors and how there's a one model that's X by X. How does that fit on the lot? And there's another model that's a 3-2, a little smaller, X by X. How does that fit? So they're working on that site plan of what could be legitimately placed and still not be crammed.
These foundations like.
So they have to be set on foundation. I'm assuming it's a stem wall that goes around it.
Okay, and it's tied in.
It has to be, yes. So they've been working with the vendor that can meet our R ratings for insulation and our snow load calculations. And there's a maintenance component to it as well. So like I said, the Workforce Housing Committee has been very aggressive getting into the weeds. Like a lot of it, I think your Parks and Trails Committee has been doing that well to get to the Allen Field and the Frank Young. So there's a lot of good work that I could go on the other committees, but that's really the upfront, I think, immediate kind of good news. In addition to the Defensible Space Ordinance, which just got adopted too. Liberty Square conversation tomorrow at 3. We're trying to merge at least 3 working committees conversations to talk about this space. So.
It's great.
Early meeting, Thursday at 8:30.
I wish I could be there.
Okay, wrap up, review action items quickly. I captured. Bill's gonna meet with the mayor to meet with the kids regarding getting data on, or information from us that we need from them. Since, Mark's, having some issues with that. We've got, the manager had recommendations to meet with 2 people from the resort, Bruce Jasmine and is it Maya Langrum,
Yeah.
with the resort to their contributions?
They're
Who's
not
gonna meet with
resort,
them?
they're not resort.
They're not
No.
resort, oh, one's the
No,
hospital district.
Yeah,
Right.
one's hospital and one's at airport.
No, the other ones does the medical for them.
The resort, okay, they.
The other
Oh,
guy
that's
is the
right.
hospital.
District,
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
for
Okay.
public health stuff.
And who's gonna meet with them?
The manager had a recommendation that we meet with those 2 people to get public health.
Who's gonna meet with them?
We hadn't decided that, it was doing the public health. Mark was kind of public health.
He
officer,
was,
wasn't
he was.
it? And we'll have to check on that. That needs follow up. Okay, we had an timeline, I'll come back timeline, action, Santos revised timeline for completion of the plan once he's on board. Action, Santos will meet with the committees and, persuade them to get the information we need. Action, Greg will talk to membership about seeing if we can tag on to membership weekend somehow with the town hall concept. I'll meet with Shay and revisit Facebook page, the outreach strategy for us. Greg's gonna get the Village Voice out in 2 weeks regarding,
Say that last one again.
you should already have these, you should know.
I do.
The
They're all
action
around
is
you.
Shay, I'm gonna I'm gonna visit with Shay on social media for the comp plan. How do we use social media for our better outreach efforts?
Mhm.
And then Greg gets the Village Voice comprehensive plan article out within the next 2 weeks in the first digital version.
Looking forward to that.
And I think that was it for the actions I got. And we're getting other.
I might have some others, but, and I highlighted some as we were going, but
The grant, NMFA grant, are we, anyone wanna follow up pursuing 50 grand from NMFA?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay,
Cause I wanna say it's a standard 50
it is,
and
and it's pretty
what,
damn easy to get,
yeah, so I'll start looking at that
okay.
after I drive back home. I'll actually look at it on my drive back up tomorrow.
Good grief.
Okay, bullet points.
Wait, one
Take
thing,
it
I
out.
have something I'd still like to discuss.
Okay, hang
the
on,
agenda.
okay, yeah,
I'm sorry.
Have your attention.
And we had an item on here and we've discussed it, but I'd kind of like to condense it into a statement. And it's one of the last things on the agenda before the comments and discussion, this slide updates. It's how do we communicate progress to the village council? Do we want to say that we are going to provide updates on a regular basis, or do we want to be more specific? We're gonna have Bill do it. I mean, yeah.
so my wrap up, had another bullet point, there's a bullet point for council update, so. Let's list out 3 or 4 key items we just covered that
Okay,
are
list
bullet points.
3 to 4 key items.
Yeah,
I think it's the timeline, number one.
yeah,
And the events for June for outreach is number 2.
Sorry, say that again. First one?
Is the draft timeline for May for council. Outreach efforts for the month of June. And then a rough timeline for, end of year fall wrap up in 2025. On the plan.
and project manager contract,
That should be very, very soon. That should be up to the top.
that should be project
You
manager
want that to be
contract.
one of the key items?
Yeah,
So the key bullet points are project manager contract, along with pursuing NMFA funding. And pursue,
What are the one you're doing?
I'm writing that up right now.
yes, we're doing right now.
And,
So project manager contract.
Yeah.
And pursue New Mexico Finance Authority funding.
Yeah.
to Support our work. Timeline.
Yeah.
For, all the goals and issues and stuff, completed. By, May 15th with, update. The council by end of May, very early June. Second thing Bill would report on. The third thing would be our
town hall.
outreach efforts for in the town hall. Hopefully to tie in with membership weekend. I think those are 3 key bullets.
those are
And
good
you
ones.
said end of your wrap up. Do we really want to go there?
Okay, I think
I think that
I
might
think
be a little bit.
the first 3 are really good solid ones. to
Yeah.
Put in.
So what would help, when, I know you take off again pretty soon, but if you were able to at least share out the action items and the bullet points Bill needs for the next couple of days, and the rest of the minutes can wait, but if we could just quickly get those few pieces out, that would be very helpful.
So you need.
Just the action
Action
items,
items.
so who, when, and where, the who, when, and where of the action items, and then, the, 3 statements for Bill that he could use.
Key items.
for Council report.
Was there a third one I thought you said?
No,
Okay, got it.
that's what we need.
Yes.
Anything else?
Great meeting.
Let's adjourn, next meeting to be determined.
To be TBD, not to be discussed.
Well, you're going into surgery.
I know, but that's, I mean,
Can you zoom in from the hospital bed?
I'm only gonna be out for a day,
Oh.
but I'm gonna be.
You made it sound like
I'm
we'll see you in
like,
October
I'm
of
not feeling good.
26.
My ACL.
After your skiing ring?
It really sucks.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. We will get a date out pretty soon for the next one.